Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning the rest of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. We're at the Mishnah, 2/3 of the way down on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, and we'll be learning until the end of the Perek, which is the bottom of Chav Daled Amud Aleph, and then on Shabbos we'll pick up with Chav Daled Amud Beis and Daf Chav Hey. I think on Shabbos Daf Yomi is at 7 o'clock, nice and late, and Mincha is at 7:55, something like that. Okay, the Mishnah writes, "Hakol ksherim lahavi esaget." Who can be a shliach? Who is allowed to be the one who says befanai nechtav befanai nechtam, or even if there is no befanai nechtav befanai nechtam? I'm just speaking about shlichus in general. Who is allowed to do that? The Gemara says everyone, chutz mechereshot v'katan, except for people who have no das, which is of course a cheresh, a shot, and a katan, as we well know. The Gemara then adds visuma, a person who's blind. We have to figure out why that's a problem because they don't lack das. The oved kochavim, which we kind of understand because they're goyim and they don't have a shaychus to the world of shlichus or to the world of get. Kibel hakatan v'higdil. Let's say that a person asks a 12-year-old boy, and he's 353 days into his last year of being a katan, and he gets a hold of the get, and then he becomes a bar chiyuv of 10 minutes later at Tzeis HaKochavim, v'higdil. Or cheresh v'nis pakeach, a person who was a cheresh, they couldn't hear, they couldn't speak, and magically they found a medicine, everything is fine and good. Suma v'nis pateach, someone who was blind who can now see. Shote v'nishtafe, a person who was a shote and he exited his state of being a shote. Oved kochavim v'nis gayer. In all of these cases, when you received the get during a time when you were ineligible to be a shliach, nothing changes just because you are now in a new phase. The Sefer HaChinuch, the Minchas Chinuch, has a whole diyun about this in regards to katan shehi higdil in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer. See, there we have a double issue, because on the one hand, we're not sure if all of Sfira is one mitzvah or Sfira is a multiple. So is he allowed to make a bracha on the remaining days? Okay, these are shilas and poskim. So here, it's not like that, because here we need you to be a bar das when you get a hold of the get. And because of all of these cases, in the case of the katan, in the case of the cheresh, the suma, and the shota, and the oved kochavim, in all cases, when they transition to the healthier and or halachically higher level of version of what they were, they're all going to be puzzle. Say that again? Very good. The Gemara is going to discuss that. We're talking about seemingly shleach leholacha, to be the one who carries it in. That's seemingly what we're talking about. We'll discuss that a little bit at the bottom of this page. Aval, however, if a person was a pikeach v'nis charesh v'chazar v'nis pakeach, he started out being normal, and then he went through a phase where he became cheresh, and then he became normal again. So he had a brief, we'll call it a health issue. Or pasuach v'nistama v'chazar v'nis pateach, a person who could see and then he became blind and then he could see again. Shafui, a person who was healthy, v'nishtate, and then he became a shote, v'chazar v'nishtafe, and then he became healed again. In all of those cases, kosher. And says the Mishnah, Ze'aklal, kol shetchilaso v'sofo b'das. As long as you begin the process of shlichus and end the process of shlichus b'das with das, then you're fine. That's okay. We don't mind if you had a break in the middle that put you in a place where really you weren't eligible to be a shliach, as long as the beginning and the end, the bookends are in places of halachic health, of das, whatever the case may be, then kosher, no problem at all. And the Gemara asks the question about the summa, as I hinted to. I got it. That makes sense why they can't be a shliach. And oved kochavim nami de la bar heteru. And oved kochavim has nothing to do with this world of shlichus. He's a guy. He has nothing to do with the world of krisus. The language of hetera is itself a little bit interesting. Why does it say hetera? And if you look at the first long line of Rashi, Rashi says la bar heteru de'ein lahen kiddushin ve'ein gittin noagin bahen ubemidi delanafshe lo chazi lo matzi lemevad shlichusa la'achrini. You can only be a shliach for something for which it's shaykh to you. So because Kiddushin and Gittin are not shaykh by him, it can't be a shliach. Regular rules of Gittin, he happens to be a goy. But the fact that he's a goy minei ubei isn't the problem. The fact that he is ineligible by Kiddushin is the problem. Because maybe he could be a shliach for something else. Maybe he could be a shliach to, I don't know, for mamanas. I will have to see. But the Gemara points out, we understand chereshot bekat, and we understand an oved kochavim. And the Gemara on the very first long line on Chav Gimel Amud Aleph says, elasuma amai lo. Why is it that a blind person can't be a shliach? What's the problem? He has das. It's perfectly fine. He just can't see. So the Gemara gives a very strange answer. Amar Rav Sheshes, lefi she'eno yodea mimi notlo ulemi nosno. because he doesn't know who he's taking it from, namely the Baal, and he doesn't know the minos, know who he's giving it to, namely the woman. So says the Gemara, Bam Kashya, this is ridiculous. Maskefler of Yosef, Heach Suma Mutter Beishto. How can a man who's blind be with his own wife?
Yosef is blind.
He was. I don't know if he was at this point, but he might have been cranky about the fact. I'm just, well, I don't know the historical parts of where he was in his life, but it could just be that he knew the halachos of a summa. Let's see if Rashi talked. I didn't even look. That's a great point. No, nobody talks about it. Who is he talking to? Sheshes was the same generation as him. They were peers, but if they both live a long life, he could have been blind already. I don't know. So Summa, how can a Summa sleep with his own wife? After all, maybe it's a sister, maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a neighbor. And forget about a Summa. If a man is with his wife in a room and the door is closed and it's dark, do you need a light to be mevarer that that's your wife? After all, if you're saying that a Summa doesn't know the minos, know the minodlo, and he can't be a shliach, you're telling me he doesn't know who he's talking to. So how can he ever be with his own spouse? How could he ever be? Rachel and Leah. Which is, I mean, that would be why the Gemara should have given that as an example. But the reason why the Gemara doesn't move very far is because this is definitely not what pshat is in Summa.
It's a rhetorical question.
It's like a T-ball. It's like we're setting up to reject. It's kind of like we're going to take a video of you doing a block right now. Here I'm going to do an easy layup, and you can just swat it into the stands. The Gemara says, Pashat, that's not the case by a Summa. 12 lines or so from the bottom of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph Ella. He is able to have a sense with his teva, with his ayin, not with his ayin literally, but he's able to sense by voice. You know who you're talking to. Like when I get a phone call from the iPad in my house, I don't know which kid it is. The second I pick up the phone, I hear about, oh, hi, and I say the kid's name. I understand what my spouse's voice sounds like, and so does a blind person. The blind guy also should be able to hear the no-tell and the no-sin. Is that the Baal and the Isha? I know their voices, otherwise that would be a problem, I agree. So Hachanami, perhaps we should say that this blind person should be able to rely on his voice. So therefore, there's no reason to say a Summa shouldn't be able to work. Ella, what is the reason, therefore, that our Mishnah precludes a Summa from being a shliach? The Gemara says, Alam Rav Yosef, Hacha b'chutz ala aretz askina. It must be, by virtue of the fact that our Mishnah is talking about a Summa, it must be that we're talking about chutz la'aretz. Why? The boy lemeimar b'fanai nechtav uvefanai nechtam v'lo matzi lemeimar. Because he's a Summa. And if he's coming in as a blind person, he does the shlichus, no problem. Someone will help him on the boat from France to Yerushalayim. He gets in an Uber, everything is fine. Everything is great. But the Maaseh, he can't say the phrase b'fanai nechtav v'fanai nechtam. V'harai, that our Mishnah, even though the Mishnah doesn't say it, our Mishnah must be talking about a get that's coming from chutz la'aretz. And what does that mean by implication? That in Eretz Yisrael, it could be a shliach, no problem at all. As long as he doesn't have to say b'fanai nechtav v'fanai nechtam, let's not call it an invalidating issue of he's a Summa, there's something wrong with him. No, you can't say what you need to say, which is b'fanai nechtav v'fanai nechtam. Omar le'Abaye, if that's true, then elamayata, then we have a problem with our Mishnah, because our Mishnah spoke about a case of pasuach v'nistama, that we had a case of someone who was able to see and then he became blind. So maybe over there, Dematzi Omar hachanami dekasher, there when he was handed the get while he was still able to see, and then he became blind, why can't he do the shlichus? Your concern was that he couldn't say b'fanai nechtav b'fanai nechtam. Yes, he can, because hooray, he saw at 6 p.m. when he took the get. I watched it signed, I watched it written, no problem. Then car accident on the way, became blind. Why can't he say b'fanai nechtav b'fanai nechtam? But the problem with that is that our Mishnah doesn't write that. What does our Mishnah write? Pasuach v'nistama v'chazer v'nispateach. If he can see and then he becomes blind, and only he gets his vision back again, then we say kosher. So that implies chazar v'nispatech in only if he's fully healed by the time he gives over the get. But lo chazar v'nispatech, if he doesn't get healed, then lo, it implies that if he's still blind, even though he could see at the time of the ksiva and the chasima, seems like it's not kosher. So our Mishnah is a kasha in itself. So says the Gemara, that question is a good question, but it's actually, we're going to undercut it, because hu hadin, really the halacha is 6 lines from the bottom, that really even if he became blind after he saw and never healed, that's okay. We would still trust him to say b'fanai nechtav b'fanai nechtam. So why is the Mishnah written the way that it is by the case of Summa, that it's, what was the language over here, that it's pasuach v'nistama v'chazar v'nispatech? Why did you write that he has to heal again? It should just say chazar v'nistama, and it should be fine. Then the Gemara says 5 lines from the bottom. That in the case of the shoteh, where he was healthy and then he became mentally unhealthy and then he healed again, because over there in the mentally unhealthy state you're not a bardas, we need him to heal. Therefore, for the sake of symmetry, just to have symmetry. So because in the case of a shoteh, he couldn't stop in the middle of his healing process while he's still a shoteh, he has no das. By the summa, he has das, so really that would be the case. And the Gemara, stopping right here at least, says that a summa is allowed to be a shliach, even if he has to say b'fanai nechtam, b'fanai nechtam, provided that he could see at the time that he received the get. And then we don't care what happens to him afterwards in regards to his vision. No problem at all. You're allowed to be a shliach. Then says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, Deka Nami. I can prove this from a brisa, Diktani from our Mishnah, because what did we say? This is a very gentle diuk, ze'aklal, kol shetchilaso v'sofo b'da'as kosher. Anyone who at the beginning, when they received the get as a shliach, was healthy, and anyone who at the end of the delivery was healthy, kosher. V'lo katani kol shetchilaso v'sofo b'kashrus. Kosher. It didn't say bekashrus, that everything was bekashrus. That's not what we're talking about. Again, a very, very subtle, gentle diuk from the Mishnah. And Shema Mina, we therefore see from here that a person who is a summa, but who is able to see at the time of the get being written and being signed, no problem, we trust him. Question, 2 lines from the bottom. Bo'minei me Rav Ami, Eved, ma'u sheyaseh shliach lekabel get isha miyad baila. Can an Eved become a shliach on behalf of a woman to receive a get? So a man is bringing a get, and the woman says, give it to my Eved, the shliach. Right? So what's the status of an Eved? The Gemara says, Amar lahu, we should look at our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah forbids an Oved Kochavim being a shliach, what's implied? Michlal de Eved kosher. Take a look at Rashi at the top of the page. Dibur hamaskal michlal de Eved kosher. V'chi hechi de kosher lehava lio shliach legaresh. Just like an Eved is able to be a shliach, kach kosher lekabala lio shliach lehis garesh. She'ein chiluk ta'am beinehem. Stan, this is what you were referring to. That when we make the inference at the top of the page of michlal de Eved kosher, we assume that that's for shlichus. The question of the Gemara from Rav Ami was about Kabbalah, not about him traveling with the get. That we know is mutter from a drasha, from the inference from the pasuk. What we don't know is whether or not he's allowed to receive it. And Rashi says Pashat, he's allowed to receive it, no problem at all. That's Shita number 1. But the Gemara doesn't like that. Top of Chav Kim. This is not her Eved. This is an Eved who's appointed as a shliach. Give it to this Eved who I've asked to be my shliach. Yeah, the Rishonim point this out. This is you're already doing a lot for the house now because your wife is hurting. So I don't know if you want to build a larger dog house, as it were. It's a mansion actually. Dog house is a mansion, and don't bring Stan with you. Don't bring him with you. There's room. There's room. So it's 4,000 square feet, 3 floors. So the Gemara here was not talking about an Eved that belonged to any particular person. And we just want to know, can this woman tell an Eved, go be my shliach? The answer is yes, according to the first Shita. But on the top of...
If he keeps the 7 mitzvahs b'nei off, then he really could be a shliach.
I mean, he's an Eved, so he has to follow certain laws anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So if he wants to get married, there has to be a kiddushin, there has to be a get. So he's shaykh. It's not like a goy where there's no shaykh. He's like an isha. Yeah. Yeah. So except that he's like an isha, but he's right. I mean, he's the man. So whoever he would say harad mekudesh, say however the marriage would work between him and a shivcha, whatever it would be. But that's for sure true. However, not everyone agrees that an Eved is allowed to do this. And on the top line of Chav Gimel Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rav Yochanan, Ein ha'Eved na'aseh shliach lekabel gel isha miyad baila. That an Eved is not allowed to be the recipient as a shliach on behalf of the woman to receive a get from her husband. Why? Lefi she'eina b'toras gittin v'kiddushin. Exact opposite of what I just said. So this is a machlokas. This is a machlokas. Take a look at Tosfos. Dibur hamaskal fein she'ena b'toras gittin v'kiddushin v'ha demiskareshes be'eved shela hainu mitam chatzer. The fact that there's a gerushin with the eved is as it relates to a din of chotzer, like getting rid of property. So it's not exactly the same exact thing.
The fact
Yeah.
that she can be miskareshes by an Evan accepting it, because he has it, when it's her Evan.
No.
The Evan shalom, and mitam chutz. It's not mitam shlichus, but rather he's property. It's like dumping the.
Oh, that's correct. You're saying that if she would have owned him.
If it's shalom, the Evan shalom.
Yeah, v'hadam iskareshes be'eved shalom.
Lichus, it's mishum chutzer. It's like you stick it in his pocket. It's like you throw it in her backyard.
So Rav Yochanan's only arguing in a case where the eved doesn't belong to her. That's what
Correct.
Tosfos is adding. Correct. If she brings it into her marriage. Nichse some barzon. Nichse malug is which one? We should know. We should know this.
I think Nichse Maluk.
Nichse malug. He gets peros.
Actual Evan.
everything.
Yeah, I don't know which one it is, but you're correct about Tosfos there. Thank you. Okay, so set.
I have to, that's the project.
What?
You're right, we should know.
We should know. I should certainly.
I'm the couple.
Yeah, well, trust me, I'm looking straight into this video, talking to myself for sure. Okay, Masi Flora Belazar. Taima b'milsa delesa. The reason why Rav Yochanan says that we don't trust an Eved is because it's b'milsa delesa. It's something that doesn't apply to him. But hamilsa de isa kosher. What is implied is that if there's a halachic area by an Eved, then his actions would count. So if that rule is true, why doesn't that same rule apply by Oved Kochavim? Namely, we had initially said that by an Oved Kochavim, that because the world of Gittin v'Kiddushin isn't shaykh by them, that was what we saw in the bottom of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. So therefore they have no shaykhs to be a shliach. But over here, if our inference is correct by an Eved, that if an Eved is shaykh, then we should say the same thing by an Akum, and that doesn't seem to play out. The Oved Kochavim, we have a case of an Oved Kochavim, the Hakusi, both of them, the Isnahu B'Torah's Truma Denafshayu, they each do have some type of reality in the world of Truma, Ditnan, Ha'oved Kochavim v'Hakusi, Shatarmu Mishalahem, if an Oved Kochavim or a Kusi want to give Truma, they can, Truma San Truma, Vitnan, and we have another Mishnah, Oved Kochavim Shataram Shel Yisrael, if an Oved Kochavim, let's say a worker in the field, he does the Truma of a Yisrael, Afilu Birshus, Ein Truma so Truma. That's very odd. Why is that odd? My taima, Lav Mishum Dechsiv Gamatem, Ma'atem Yisrael, Av Shluchachem Yisrael. So that would be a stira. Over here, it seems from the world of Truma that even though it's true that an Akum can give Truma of some kind, we still don't allow him to give Truma on behalf of a Yid. And there the pasuk seems to be black on white. It's a drasha, Ma'atem Yisrael, Av Shluchachem Yisrael. So then how can our inference from above be correct that if a goy is shaykh by a particular aspect of halacha that he can represent us? Let's say, I don't know, dinim, whatever. We know like they have shaykhs in dinim, so maybe we can rely on them because of that. So we have the inference from what we learned on the top of the page is a problem for Oved Kochavim. So says the Gemara, Amre debe Rav Yanai, lo, that's not correct. The reason why an Oved Kochavim is limited is ma'atem b'nei bris, av shluchachem b'nei bris. When it comes to the world of Truma, the only people who can represent you are people who are b'nei bris, who have a bris milah, who have a circumcision. Av shluchachem b'nei bris. So therefore, your messengers have to be b'nei bris. So therefore, an Eved could, for example, function to separate Truma for you. So in other words, we're redoing the drasha. The drasha that we have by the world of Truma is not to say that it has to be a Yisrael, but that it has to be someone who's Gemalt. And therefore an Eved, who has to get a bris milah to be an Eved. So he's shaykh by giving Truma. But that's not true by a Goy who has no din of milah. That's the big tumult in poskim. Can you do circumcisions for non-Jews? So the Ramon Shulchan Aruch allows it as long as you're not doing it for free, so that there's no lo sachanim issues. And I think I've mentioned this before, that some of the poskim discuss if you make a bracha by the bris of Bnei Yishmael, and also Bnei Keturah, the Pischei Tshuva in Hilchos Bris Milah speaks about this. And he writes the crazy conclusion that by Bnei Yishmael we don't, but by Bnei Keturah we do. So if we actually knew who the Bnei Keturah were, and we don't, because they don't keep their Masorah like we do, but had we known, the halacha is we would have made a bracha b'shem u'malchus on their children when we make a bris milah. So it probably is the case. This is me talking. I didn't see this in writing. It probably is the case that it's better if you're choosing between Stamagoy and a Ben Yishmael. It's probably better to do the Ben Yishmael bris because there's a sprach, there's a tether or something to the world of Briso Shalav or Mavinu, because they are the children of Ab. And maybe not today because they're all Ben Achar Ben and there's a lot of converts. It's hard to know. Okay. Amar Rav Chia bar Abba, Amar Rav Yochanan. As we had already said, we had said that an Eved cannot function as a recipient of a get from a husband on behalf of a wife. And the Gemara says, even though we already learned the following, that Hareat Shivcha Vivladech Ben Chorin, that a woman can remain a Shivcha while her children go free. And im haisa ubara zachsalo, if she had a fetus, then that child would be zocher to go free. My im haisa ubara zachsalo. How could it be that the ubar can go free? I mean, she has no freedom to even say that anyone else can go free. She's an eved. She's a shivcha. Anything she has belongs to the Rav, belongs to the Baal. So the Gemara says, Ki asar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rav Yochanan Tarte Amar. There's two things that have been said. First of all, Nirin dvarim she'eved mekabel get lechavero miyad rabo shel chavero. If I am the eved of person X and you are the eved of person Y, I can be mekabel a get for you as long as you and I are not under the same master. So if you're under master Y and I'm under master X, I can receive a get from your master to free you up. Aval lo miyad rabo shelo, but I can't receive a get for you if both of us are under the same mastership. That's not allowed. If someone's going to whisper to you, Adam lomar zu halacha shnuya, they're going to say that that's not true. I'm going to teach you halacha that this is the case, that we do see where you're allowed to have someone be freed. How is that? We had said in this brisa that we quoted a few lines ago, this is a brisa that's from Maseches Temura, that if a woman was pregnant, that we said that the ubar can go free, even though the shifcha has to remain in servitude. Amar losh negdole hador pirshu es hadavar. There are two greats who explain this, Rav Zera and Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. What did they say? Chad Amar Hamani Rebbe, that this brisa that says that the ubar goes free is really Rebbe. To Amar Hamashachar Chatzi Avdo Kana. First of all, there is such a thing as being half free, chatzi evet, chatzi ben chorin. And then the second piece is v'chad omar my time de Rebbe beha. Why does Rebbe hold this way? Because savar ubar yerach ima hu v'nasek mishihikne la echad me'evareha. This is fascinating because ubar is yerach imo, because the ubar is a part of the mother. So when we say that there can be this split of chatzi evet and chatzi ben chorin, the chatzi ben chorin can be the ubar. Completely. So the shifcha remains in servitude, and the child that's born, once he's born, is no longer an eved. And it breaks all the rules that we would have. You solved the whole problem, but it breaks all the typical rules because we would have thought that. What do you mean? Like the peros, like the vlados of the shifcha belong. So that's only true if she's not chatzi eved, chatzi ben choren. But once she's begeder chatzi eved, chatzi ben choren, she can remain an eved selflessly and let her child go be free and be a full yid, whatever all the details are. So the Gemara said it was just trying to show us this case of how the evanas the shliach can get b'kedushin and fine. Okay, that's what the Gemara says, and it brings us to a new Mishnah. This is a Mishnah on 2/3 of the way down on Chav Gimel Amud Beis, another Amud to go. The Gemara says, Af hanashim she'ena ne'emanus lamar meis baila, even though there is a group of women who we will soon detail who are not trusted to say that a husband has died. Ne'emanos lahavi asgita, even though they're not allowed to say their edus that a man has died under certain circumstances, they're still allowed to say that a get was received. And who are these women that we're not allowed to talk about? Chamosa, the shviger, you got to be careful, right? Things could get political. Ubas chamosa, right? Yeah, that's your sister-in-law. That's your husband's sister or your mother's daughter, your mother-in-law's daughter. Vitzarasa, your co-wife, your yevimta. The yevimta is the woman who could potentially end up being your wife. That's if Rachel's married to Ruvain, Shimon's married to Shoshana, and Shimon dies without children, then the mitzvah of Yibum falls on Ruvain to marry Shoshana. So that's your Yevimta, Ubas Baila, and the daughter of that husband, daughter of your husband, who is again from the first marriage. In all of these cases, a woman would not be trusted to say that the husband of any of these women have died, because This all could be anger, could all be frustration. So why is it that we believe her when it comes to a get? That's the Mishnah's question. Ma ben get lemisa. Why is it that there's a difference? If we don't trust her for one, why do we trust her for the other? So the Gemara says, because one of them doesn't have to do with her feelings. One of them has to do with writing. She'aksav mochiach. What does the get say? Shem, shemo, ushemar, iro, iro. We have all the right information. And if the get checks out, and remember, it has to be the type of paper that can't be forged, whatever the details are. So that's why we make a split where we say we don't trust her to say meis baila in any of the cases of these women with whom she might have a strained relationship, but we do trust her to say that a get was received. Ha'isha atzma mavia gita, and a woman can also bring her own get. That's a fascinating reality, which we're going to discuss today. How can a woman bring her own get? The second they give her the get, she should be divorced. We're going to discuss that in the Gemara. And if she does bring her own get, got to figure out how all this works. She's a witness to the husband who's writing the get, and then she picks it up. She isn't divorced yet. She brings it to a new place. What are the mechanics here that allow for this to even make any sense? We'll discuss that on Chaf Daled Amud Aleph. Let's start with the Gemara. Our Mishnah told us that we trust a woman to say ne'emanos lahavi yes gita, but she can't say meis baila for any of the women with whom she'd have a strained relationship. And the Gemara opens 3/4 of the way down that we have a brisa that doesn't agree. The Hatanya kishem she'ein ne'emanos lomar meis baila, just like a woman with whom she has a strained relationship with any other woman, we don't trust her to say meis baila. What does this brisa say against our Mishnah? Kach ein ne'emanos lahavi gita. So that's a stira. Our Mishnah said b'fem maleh that we trust her lahavi gita. And this brisa says that once we know that there's a strained relationship between her, and I'll just use her mother-in-law as an example, we also don't trust her to bring the get. So that's a straight up disaster. You got two tanaim not agreeing. Amar Rav Yosef lo kasha kan ba'aretz kan b'chutz la'aretz. It depends where the get is coming from. Ba'aretz, if the get is coming from Eretz Yisrael, delava diburei didorka samchinan, where we don't care about what she says, we don't need her to say b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtam. And with a strained relationship in chutz la'aretz, she might have been motivated to do so. But if the get's in Eretz Yisrael, where we don't need her testimony, she's literally like an Uber package carrier. We don't really care what's happening. Then mehemna. But b'chutz la'aretz, where diburei didorka samchinan, where we do rely on her words, then lo mehemna, then we don't believe her. And therefore, in chutz la'aretz, a woman is not believed at all with women who have strained relationships. That means that with her mother-in-law, she's not trusted to say that the mother-in-law's husband died, and she's not trusted to bring her get. But in Eretz Yisrael, she is trusted. And Amar le Abaye, Adarabba, you got your logic 180 degrees the wrong way. And listen to how Abaye flips it on its head. Ipcha mistabra. The exact opposite is logical. Ba'aretz in Eretz Yisrael, di asi bal me'ar that if a husband comes to complain, mashkichinan bei, we do listen to him. Di'ika lememar lekilkula kamichavna lo mehemna. In Eretz Yisrael, where we don't say b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtam, and if a husband comes and complains, so we listen to him. So then that's a problem. We don't believe her. But b'chutz la'aretz, outside of Eretz Yisrael, in France and America, wherever, di'asi bal me'ar lo mashkichinan bei mehemna, because there was b'fanai nechtav u'b'fanai nechtam in chutz la'aretz, the husband's or is ignored, there we should trust her. So it's the exact opposite of approach number one of Rav Yosef. It's a little bit difficult because Rav Yosef was Abaye's Rebbe. So that we have to figure out how this works. We've seen many times in Shas where Rabbeim don't agree, where a Talmud doesn't agree with their Rebbe, not for now, but it is an important question. And the Gemara actually sides with the Talmud. The Gemara says 5-6 lines from the bottom, Tanya Kavase de Abaye. We agree with the opinion of Abaye in how to answer the stira between our Mishnah and the Brisa. What does the Brisa say? Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer Mishum Rabbi Akiva. Isha ne'emenes lahavi gita mikal v'chomer. A woman is trusted to bring a get because of a kal v'chomer. Uman noshem she'amru chachamim ein ne'emanos lomar meis baila ne'emanos lahavi gita. Just like a woman who the chachamim say we don't trust to say meis baila with someone with whom she has a strained relationship, but we do trust her for a get. Then he she'ne'emenes lomar meis baila, by herself, against herself, she can say that her husband died. Einu dim she'ne'emenes lahavi gita. All the more so, she's allowed to testify for herself. Pashat that that's true. For sure, that's true. And the Gemara says in Mimakom Shabbos, we've seen this before. That's all right, don't worry about it. So we've seen this before. Mimakom Shabbos, the Gemara says that if we are talking about a case scenario, Mimakom Shabbos, from this very same Kal V'chomer, all good. Don't worry about it. Umimakam Shabbos, from this very same Kal V'chomer, we can learn the following. Mala halahan tzricha sheyomer b'fanenu nechtav b'fanenu nechtam. Af hi tzricha shetomar b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. She too, when she brings her own get, would have to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. And therefore, the Gemara basically brings a raya that shows that Abaya is right, because in the beginning of that brisa, we highlighted the fact that a woman is ne'emenes to say b'fanei nechtav b'fanei nechtam. Where is that true? In Chutz La'aretz, a raya that Abaya is right. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi mas nisa nami deka. We have a raya for this on Chav Daled Amud Aleph 4 lines down. Dekatani, what does the brisa say? Ha'isha atzma mevia gita. It's not a brisa, it's our Mishnah. She's trusted to bring her own get. Ubilvad shetehei tzricha lomar. What does she say? B'fanei nechtam b'fanei nechtam. That shows us that Abaye is right, that our Mishnah is talking about Chutz La'aretz Shma Mina. The Gemara is just bothered because this past Mishnah is two parts, and the previous Mishnah is one part. So there's, when we say Reisha, it's the previous Mishnah, not this one. The Mitzia, the middle part of the Mishnah, is the first part of this Mishnah, and the Seifa is the last part of this Mishnah. So the Gemara says, Rav Yosef, he asks Akasha, I don't understand. Reisha, 2 Mishnahs ago, the Seifa, which is the second part of this Mishnah, that's B'chutz La'aretz, and Mitziyasa, but the first part of our Mishnah is Ba'aretz. I mean, like, it's a little choppy. It's not like the easiest way to understand a flow of Mishnahs. We would have thought that we would have stayed on the theme, which is ironic because we've made it through half of Shas so far. They don't always stay on the theme, right? We see Mishnahs that change directions all the time. We do have a preference for consistency. What? Magic bullet theory. What's that? Oh, yeah. So we would have assumed that it would have all been on the same topic. So why are we willing to embrace that the theory is true here? That we're really jumping around from right to left. What's the answer? So the Gemara says, in fact, over here it is the case that the Reisha v'Seifa is b'chutz la'aretz, mitziyasa ba'aretz. Mimai, how do we know that this is true? Midikatani, my ben get lemisa. What is the difference between a get where a woman is not trusted with the testimony that a man died? We don't trust her in regards to misa, but we do trust her in regards to get. What did we say? Shaksav mochiach, that the writing is a proof. V'lo kasav shaksav upeh mochiach. It's a fascinating raya. What did our Mishnah say? Only the writing matters. It didn't say the writing and the peh, namely that part of our Mishnah which says that the ksav is mochiach must be a case where the shliach is not saying b'fanei nechtam but b'fanei nechtam. The haraya that part of the Mishnah must be talking about Eretz Yisrael, and Abaye's approach is right. That brings us to the 2 dots, a quarter of the way down. Ha'isha atzma mevia. We said that a woman brings her own get, and the Gemara asks the obvious question: Isha michimati gita liyada igrishala. How is this even possible? Let's say that I'm in France and I want to divorce my wife. I write a get and I say, "Here, bring this to Eretz Yisrael." I mean, mamish, the second that she hands it, even Bal Korcha, we know that a woman can get divorced even Bal Korcha. How in the world is she not divorced? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna, it must be that the case is Be'omer. What? I mean, the Gemara, we have to create the Ukimta. That's what we have to do. But without creating an Ukimta, the second that it's within Daled Amos and he lets go of the get, she's divorced. So the Gemara says it must be Be'omer that he says, Lo tiskar shivo ela bifnei bezdin ploni. You can carry this get, you can put it in a safe box. I don't care what you do with it. You're not divorced until you get to the bezdin in Yerushalayim. So says the Gemara, sof, who cares? Kimat yahasam, the second she walks into the door of bezdin, igrishala. Because what was the condition of the husband? When you get in front of the bezdin. Now she's in front of the bezdin. So still, when is she saying b'fanai nechtavu b'fanai nechtam? How is she not divorced at that point? It says the Gemara, Ella, the case must be a third of the way down on Chav Daled Amud Aleph. El Amar Rav Huna bar Manoach mishmei de Rav Acha berei de Rav Ika de Amar La kimatis hasam. When you get there, asneche aara, put it on the ground, and v'shakle, put it down on the ground, and then pick it up. This marriage must have been very bad. But this is what the husband's aid says. No, but if she's still holding it and the condition of the divorce is you need to put it down first and then pick it up again, so then she won't be divorced until you put it down again. But don't worry, Rava is going to reject this. Ihachi, if that's true, Havale, that would be a case of, quote, Tli gitech me'al gabe karka. If a husband says to his wife, your divorce papers are over there on the ground. Go pick them up. That doesn't work because that's not v'nasan biyada. V'amar Rava tli gitech me'al gabe karka lo amar klum. And you could imagine in a contentious relationship, he doesn't even want to just go get her off the dining room table. No, you have to hand her the get. Mature. You have to be an adult. You have to hand her the get. And if you say, go pick it up off the ground, off the table, that doesn't work either. So this ukimta that we just attempted, where the husband will tell the wife, go to Bezdin X, put it on the floor, pick it up again, that also doesn't work. Ella says the Gemara, it must be the Amar Allah, where he said to her, have a shliach leholacha, you're going to be a shliach that carries the get for me from France to Yerushalayim, adamatis hasam, till you get to Yerushalayim, v'chimatis hasam, once you get there, have a shliach lekabbalah, you're going to appoint a shliach lekabbalah, v'kabli es gitech, and that person will receive the get, and then you'll be divorced. So it's an oddity because she's carrying divorce until she appoints someone to receive it on her behalf. And oddly, when she hands the divorce to someone, hands the get to someone else, then she's divorced. Couldn't be more backwards, right? When the woman's carrying it, she's not divorced. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you this divorce paper. Can you just do me a favor? You're going to represent me. When I hand it to you, I'm divorced. It's paradoxical in its format, but the Gemara says it doesn't work anyways because the halo chazra shlichus eitz al abal. Then she's not a regular shliach. We have a general rule by shlichus that the shlichus, when it's done, the shliach has to be able to go back to the Baal and say that it's done. But when she does this, she's no longer a shliach anymore. She's done because she's now changed into just a wife, and she's no longer the shliach. So says the Gemara, let's try again. To Amar Allah, have a shliach leholacha adamatis hasam, v'chimatis hasam shave shliach lekabbalah. Sorry, I made a mistake. Let's just go back a little bit, halfway down. You're going to be a shliach for carrying the get to Yerushalayim. When you get there, you're going to switch into a shliach lekabbalah, the kabli es gitech, and receive your own get. So what that means is she walks into Bezdin, then her role changes from shliach leholacha to shliach lekabbalah. She used to be the one to carry the long distance, and now she's the one to accept. So she changes her role.
How does he have the right to appoint a shliach lekabbalah?
He's turning her into a shliach lekabbalah.
How does he have the right to appoint any shliach? It's only her right.
What do you mean?
A husband.
She's a shliach. She says shliach.
Shliach, take it.
His shliach is allowed to.
She then has a right to have somebody else accept it on her behalf.
No, she's a shliach right now. So the husband says, you're a shliach right now. When you get there, as part of your shlichus, appoint someone. You're my shliach.
The second case says
you're appointing, you're appointing, you become as my wife.
You have the right to appoint her shliach. Only the wife has the right to appoint shliach.
Hold on one second. This first case over here is v'chimatis hasam habe shliach lekabbalah v'kabli es gitech.
You will be.
You yourself turn into a shliach lekabbalah.
How does that work?
Why? What's your problem? He made her a shliach in the first place. Why can't he also make?
Only the husband only has a right to make a shliach.
But she's the shliach. He can tell the shliach. Yeah.
That's fine. That's his yad. But her yad is with her rights are to be as a kamal. She can't.
So in the second case,
She's not the wife when she's a shliach. She's a shliach when she's a shliach.
No, but he can't point to be both on her behalf.
That's what the Gemara is recommending. That's what the Gemara means
it
here.
does say those words.
Look at Rashi. Rashi says halfway down, "V'chimatis hasam have'at gufech shliach." You yourself will be a shliach. The yadech lekabbalah, the kabli miyadech. Right hand. It's right hand to left hand.
So without her knowing it, please have her shliach. Without her knowing it, he can appoint a shliach lekabbalah, and she's divorced.
That's what surprises me. That's
I don't understand why that surprises you. He might be the she might be the what she might be the wife, but right now she's a shliach.
Give it to a wife. Can Reuven write a get and give it to Shimon and say, now my wife is divorced?
No.
Get to, right? She can make Shimon her shliach to accept it, not have to see it.
She can make herself a shliach to accept it. That's what she did.
Oh, you're saying she's deciding.
The husband is guiding the process. The husband says,
She might want to stop the process.
I don't want to be a shliach.
first of all, right now we're trying to find a new kimta for how our Mishnah works. So
But Phil, if she could stop the process, in other words, she let the law up to this point, she doesn't she decides, man, I don't wanna be it.
Up to the front door of Bezdin, she's shliach le'olacha.
And then she could stop the process at that point and do that.
I mean, she has to do her shlichus. She's a shliach, like any other shliach. We have halachic assumptions, for example. Yeah, shliach oseh shlichus.
Not a shiur, it's a
Whatever,
chazaka.
it's a chazaka, but we assume that if she was eligible to be a shliach, which she is, then there's no reason to assume she didn't finish her shlichus. You're adding an emotional piece that she may not want to, she may, whatever.
Oh, I was curious if that was in house, not if, no, you're saying she has to do with it.
Yeah. Not only that, in this case, he changes her over that she's now going to be a shliach lekabbalah. The Gemara assumes it can work. That's for sure. Rashi is crystal clear. Rashi says again, at gufeich shliach biyadech lekabbalah v'kabli miyadech. You yourself will be a shliach. The Gemara rejects this for another reason. V'halo chazara v'lo chazra shlichus eitzel habal. She's no longer a shliach anymore. She shifted from shliach leholacha to shliach lekabbalah. She's no longer a regular shliach. And if that happens, it ruins her as a shliach, and therefore that can't be. So it therefore must be the Amar La have shliach leholacha dematis hasam until you get to the gates of Bezdin. You're a shliach leholacha v'chimatis hasam shave shliach lekabbalah. Then you can go pick somebody. Does that feel better? It's the same problem.
That's all. I actually think what Rashi's saying is hand it from the right hand to your left.
That was in the previous case, not here.
Yeah.
That is what
that's
Rashi is saying.
Rashi said.
Not literally, but just that you become
I
a.
think more or less literally.
Why, really?
Probably the other. Accepted from your hand by the hand to the
I
left.
don't think so.
Okay.
I
don't
mean,
know how else.
yeah,
It's not shot appointing a shliach, it's shot when you get there, stop your shlichus. and go
Become a
give it to
shliach
yourself,
lekabbalah.
and go give it to yourself.
yeah, yeah, it could be.
Yeah, in the second case, it makes more sense.
The second case, she's appointing a new shliach, which is more typical. She can appoint that shliach. That's true. But the Gemara has a problem with this as well. This is only true according to the Shita that a woman is allowed to make a shliach to receive a get from the shliach of her husband, meaning that a woman can establish who the shliach lekabbalah is. And that shliach lekabbalah, say Shimon in your case, he'll go and receive the get from the shliach of the shliach leholacha. That's fine. Amar ein ha'isha oseh shliach lekabel gittin miyad shliach baila. There is a shita in the Tanaim that a woman is not allowed to pick the shliach lekabbalah. If that's true, ma'ikala meimar. How does your ukimta work in a case where a woman is not allowed to appoint a shliach lekabbalah? Your ukimta was that the woman is a shliach leholacha up until the doors of Bezdin, and that she would then appoint a shliach lekabbalah. But if a woman is not allowed to appoint a shliach lekabbalah, dead in the water. How do we navigate this case? So says the Gemara, no, my time. What's the reason why a woman is not allowed, according to this track, why a woman is not allowed to appoint a shliach lekabbalah? Because mishum di could be zayon debal. Because it's considered to be disgraceful for the husband that she says, I'm not even going to go out to meet you. I'm going to go send out somebody else. I don't even want to talk to you. That's considered to be zayon debal. But the hacha in this case, ba lo kapid. The husband was the one who stipulated that this is how it should be, and therefore, according to that shita, it would work. And the Gemara adds another iteration.
It's gonna be done for travel 600.
Blah.
So you want to be done for travel with your own jet for 600 miles. Not be the way. That's not designed like that.
2023 is not the same team as is not the same as the year 300. That's a different world we live in. Hani chalamanda amar next. Yeah, hani chalamanda amar mishum bizayon debal. I understand what you're saying. If you say that the reason why a woman cannot appoint a shliach lekabbalah is because of it would be a bizayon to the husband that she's appointing a shliach. But according to the one who says that a woman is not allowed to appoint a shliach lekabbalah because it is a case that can be confused with where her get is in a field that's sold to a friend of the husband. This is a case we saw a few days ago. Then this ukimta doesn't work. So then the Gemara gets to one of its final answers. The Amar La, the husband says to the wife, have a shliach leholacha adamatis hasam. You are going to be the shliach leholacha from France to Yerushalayim. V'chimatis hasam, when you get there, shavi shliach leholacha v'kabli as gitach minei. You are allowed to appoint someone to get your get. Why does that change anything?
Make some.
Chimatis hasam. Shavi shliach leholacha. Shavi shliach leholacha, that they can finish your shliach leholacha, v'kabli as gitech minei. But this actually raises another issue, which is that you're no longer, it's the issue we saw before, which is you're no longer a shliach lechazara. You can't go back to your husband.
Yeah, no, she can't, because she completed it. Her job was only to give it to the next guy. It's only to give it to the next guy. It's not to finish the gerushin. It's to bring it to the other shliach. Which she did accomplish.
I don't understand why that's the case. Why is it any different than when she would turn the last person into a shliach l'Kabbalah? She still finished her shlichus. Her job was to get it to the guy. She did. Menaf kamina. The Gemara assumes you're right, I'm sure, but the question.
Right, that's second case.
That's what Rashi says. Shavi shliach acharina leholacha kedei shetehe shlichusa chozeres eitzel baal.
Yeah, that was your question.
I know.
Rashi literally, yeah.
No, he's not asking it. He's saying your answer.
No, yeah, but he's.
Yeah, he's referencing it, right? It's a la'achar zman kabel gitech minay v'shliach she'asa shliach amrinan b'chol get she'shliach rishon osa as sheni bevezin. Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't know. V'yibai same. Another possible answer is to Amar la have shliach leholacha dematis hasam, that you're going to be a shliach from France to Yerushalayim. Chimatis hasam emar kami beidina b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam. You walk into Bezdin and say b'fanei nechtav u'b'fanei nechtam u'mash bebeidina shliach. Then you make them the Bezdin v'lisvua ne'alach, and then you'll take it back from them. Still difficult. This requires Rishonim because there's too much that's a little unclear. Hadron alacha, maybe get Baruch Hashem another parak. You wrote, so we should come back to this daf in 7.5 years. Wishing you all a beautiful night.
Clearly,